Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Executive MBA information session this afternoon. Quick word of introduction. My name is Brett Hunter. I'm the Senior Admissions Manager for the Executive MBA at London Business School. And today I hope to take you through a little bit of information about the school itself, about the Executive MBA program and some of the people who participate on the program, and also a little bit about admissions as well in terms of the best ways to maximize your chances of coming onto the program. I'll leave a few minutes at the end of the presentation as well if you have any questions that you'd like to ask. And so feel free to type those questions in either during the presentation or at the end, and I'll endeavour to answer them before the end of the session at 2 o'clock UK time. So before we move on to the Executive MBA itself, just a little bit of information about the range of programs we hold at the school. Obviously, London Business School offers a fairly broad curriculum for our programs, and they really do range from all the way from the recent graduates, as you can see in the top of the screen there, with the Masters in Management, the Global Masters in Management, and the Masters in Financial Analysis, all the way through to the senior managers with the Executive MBA portfolio and the Sloan MSc. The reason I talk about this slide is because even if you do take an executive MBA program, you're not simply studying with other executive MBA students. When it comes to the elective phase, you work in mixed classes with people across all of the programs. But also even on campus itself, there's a chance to meet and network with people at all stages of their careers. It's a great chance to bounce ideas off each other and to synergize. So just to briefly run through the range of programs we have, I mentioned the Master in Management Global MIM and the MFA. These programs are for recent graduates who are looking to get a leg up in the corporate world and to move into management positions, perhaps a little bit quicker than they might have if they went through the traditional path of going through the corporate world. The full-time MBA is our flagship program. It's a full-time program that can be taken in a 15, 18, or 21-month version. And that's for people who are early career, so usually around about 2 to 10 years of experience, with the average being around about 6. The Master in Finance is our one specialist program. It can be taken either in full-time or part-time. And it's for those individuals who are working in the financial services sector and who want to stay in financial services. I'll speak at length, obviously, about our executive MBA portfolio shortly. But broadly speaking, it's for people who are mid-career to senior manager. The average across our portfolio is usually around about 11 or 12 years of experience, and individuals usually come in the range of about 6 years of experience, all the way through to 25 or 30 years of experience. Then there's the Sloan MSc, which is a non-MBA program. It's a Master in Science, focusing on leadership and strategy, as well as globalization. It's a 12-month full-time program for senior managers. So typically people have about 17 years of experience on the Sloan MSc. People come onto our programs for a variety of different reasons, and we feel that within the executive MBA, generally people are looking to either switch their careers into a different direction, to accelerate their careers, or perhaps to become an entrepreneur. Those who switch might be looking to move away from one particular industry, for instance, IT or financial services, and move into to another. Typically, these are a smaller percentage of people in the executive MBA class. Usually, when people get to a certain number of years of experience, around about 12 years of experience on average in an executive MBA classroom, it's slightly difficult to start afresh in a new industry. Having said that, some people do look to change their careers as a result of doing the executive MBA, and we certainly try to give the tools to people to do this. In terms of career accelerators, this is really the bulk of the class. Around about 50 to 60% of an executive MBA class is made up of individuals who are working in a particular industry and who want to stay in that industry. So for them, the executive MBA is really about possibly breaking through a glass ceiling and moving into a more senior management position, or it could be just trying to use the toolkit and the framework learnt in the executive MBA to make sure that they run their organizations a little bit better than they had done in the past. Then, of course, there's the entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs are really kind of fall into 3 categories themselves. There are those who are currently entrepreneurs. They want to pick up a toolkit to make sure that they run their organizations a little bit better. There are those who are working in the corporate world and they want to move into an entrepreneurial venture. So therefore, they want to do the program to make sure that they make the shift as efficient as possible. And then there are those who don't yet realize they're entrepreneurs, but they come onto the program thinking, for instance, they want to accelerate their career and get some ideas through meeting some of the people on the program and perhaps come up with a business idea with one of their classmates, and then end up changing into a different direction and going into an entrepreneurial venture after the program is finished. So, in terms of the question of why would anyone want to do a program at London Business School, broadly speaking, it breaks down into three main areas, and that is the learning, the network, and the brand. In terms of the learning, a lot of that obviously is delivered by faculty, but by no means not all of it. The network that I'll speak about shortly is also a very large part of the learning, because people are on average around 12 years of experience on the program. They obviously have their own insights, so a lot of the learning in an executive MBA classroom is done across the students in the classroom, not just from the faculty themselves. But certainly our faculty are world class. They publish and they're on the reading lists of other top business schools around the world. But our faculty aren't just researchers sitting in an office and delivering their findings to the students. They're also practitioners. They're consultants. They're advising governments. They're on company boards. They're entrepreneurs, and the students who undergo a practitioner program, but also in terms of the faculty themselves. The way that the program is delivered, it varies as well. It's not just about case studies, although they certainly form a large part of it. It's also about simulations. It's about teamwork a lot, and working as a group to deliver assignments. We think that's a very effective way of delivering a practitioner experience, given that a lot of people will tend to have that experience working in the workplace and having to go through working groups. The examples of our faculty you can see across the bottom of the screen there. We have Linda Grattan, who's one of our organizational behavior professors. She's a former chief psychologist for British Airways and was named by the Financial Times as one of the 40 thinkers of the decade. Alex Edmonds, you can see there, is in that particular picture, is being interviewed on CNN. That was about a correlation he'd found between the performance of the stock market and then Andrew Scott, one of our economics faculty, has had many roles. Amongst them is he's the former head of the FSA here in London, and also an economic advisor to the Prime Minister of Mauritius as well. So these individuals, as well as having strong research background and ability, they're also able to deliver real world examples to the classroom. Another reason as to why you'd choose to come to London Business School is of course London, and this is there's two sides to this. It's convenient for those people who are already based in London, and for an executive MBA class that's certainly a large consideration when trying to balance work and study. It's often easy to go to a place that doesn't require too much of a commute, but also in terms of those people who are commuting from outside of the UK, London is a massive draw. Uh, we're very lucky that London is very much a not just a political 90% of Fortune 500 companies have at least some presence in London or a headquarters in London. So it gives us the ability to really give an experience of business and industry in London for the students who come on the program, but also the ability to bring guest speakers from a lot of these large and small organizations that are based around the city to give their perspectives on leadership. in finance students, the master in management students, and the Sloan students are attracted to our programs from overseas based on the London link, and it means that we have a very vibrant and diverse community on campus. So just to go into some of the details of that. But we also have the Dubai Center, which makes up one half of the Executive MBA program when the students are taught out there, but also electives are taught there for programs on other for students on other programs. And executive education participants are also taught on the Dubai campus. So it really gives us the exposure to two major regions. We also have our partnership programs and therefore our partner schools. Columbia Business School in New York jointly does the EMBA-Global Americas and Europe with us. Hong Kong Business School is the collaborator in the EMBA-Global Asia program along with Columbia Business School as well. And then Fudan Business School in Shanghai, which collaborates on the Global Master in Management program. So again, this manages to bring our student population a little bit more diversity. Then in terms of our alumni, we have around about 39,000 alumni. Actually, I think we've just ticked over 40,000 recently, but around 40,000 alumni based in 130 countries around the world. And these alumni are very active. We have around 87 alumni clubs based around the world. So no matter where you're from, when you finish your program, you're likely to be able to continue your link to London Business School through the clubs. And these alumni clubs are great opportunities, obviously, to keep in touch with those people you've studied with, but also to meet future alumni, people who are graduating off the programs in years to come after you finish your program. So it really does give you a link to London Business School and the way the world is doing business. Then, of course, in terms of students and faculty, we have students from over 120 different countries. We are very much not just a British business school. We're a global business school. And our 154 faculty come from 30 countries. It's roughly 70% of our faculty are international, and 30% are from the UK. And that is pretty much reversed from where we were in 1964 when London Business School first opened, when 70% of our faculty were UK based and only 30% international. So we really are moving in the direction of making London Business School even more international and global for its participants. So just to look at our student community, this is across the all of our programs at the school. So as you can see, we're fairly evenly spread throughout the world for people coming on board. 17% come from North America and 7% from Latin America. As you can see, 89% of people are not from the UK. So as I said before, we really aren't just a UK school. We are a global school. The bulk of the student population comes from Europe and Asia, around about 50% from those two continents, with around about 8% coming from Africa and the Middle East, and 7% from Australia and New Zealand. So there really isn't a region of the world that isn't touched by the London Business School experience. So looking at some of the details for the Executive MBA portfolio itself. So looking at our portfolio of Executive MBA London, Executive MBA Dubai, the EMBA-Global Americas and Europe, and the EMBA-Global Asia, that makes up 380 students. So roughly half of the students who study at London Business School. They come from 69 different nationalities and are based in 65 different cities. So the diversity is not just where people are from, but it's also where people are working at the time. So people are actually bringing their perspectives of from the workplace straight into the classroom. Around about a quarter of our class is female. We're looking to try and raise that to 30% and beyond. Some of our classes do reach around about 30%, but the 2014 entry was around about a quarter. On average, as I said, there's 12 years of experience in the classroom. Experience is the key word there. We look to have people who have achieved things in their careers and who are able to pass on a lot of that to their classmates. We look for people with diversity, not just in terms of their personal backgrounds, but also their professional backgrounds as well. So we have anywhere between 15 and 25 different industries represented in any given executive MBA class. And it ranges from financial services and consulting to oil and gas, energy and engineering, IT, technology, healthcare, legal, sports, entertainment. So there's a very diverse group of people that you can learn from in the classroom. The way we do this is through having a collaborative approach to the way we teach, and this is largely done through study groups. I mentioned before that not all of the work is done through examinations. It's done through collaborating on group work. And these study groups are typically groups of 5 or 6 individuals. They're as diverse as the rest of uh, the class in general. So you won't necessarily be studying with people from the same background as what you have. But they're a great opportunity, therefore, to learn from people from other backgrounds and to deliver on projects, looking at what each of your individual strengths are. So, for instance, one person might have a background in finance, another might have a background in marketing, another might have a background in HR and strategy, and together you're able to take different perspectives on projects as you work through them. But it's not just about the classroom. We have a life beyond the classroom at London Business School, and this is largely facilitated through our student clubs and societies. So as you can see in the bottom left quadrant there with the clubs, we have a range of clubs that broadly speaking fall into 4 major categories. That is the professional clubs. You can see the example of the technology club there, the women in business club, consulting club, entrepreneurship club, the energy club, the industry club, finance club, private equity club, but also a lot of other professional clubs as well that really cover every industry. There's also the geographic-based clubs. So, for instance, the Latin America Club, the North America Club, the Australia New Zealand Club, the India Club, the Japan Club. Really, any area that students come from, there's a geographic club for this. And this is for people not just from those regions, but also others who want to perhaps break into those regions professionally. There's also the sports clubs, the rugby club, the football club, the cricket club, tennis club, and so on. And then also the social clubs as well. Things like the salsa club, the wine and cheese club, the debating club, and so on. And these are other opportunities to network with other people across the school community, but possibly not in the academic way that generally happens otherwise. Also, our events and guest speakers are pretty important to us. You can see Bill Clinton on screen there. But we've also had a range of other strong guest speakers in recent years, including Tony Blair, Cherie Blair as well, Gordon Brown, Anita Roddick from The Body Shop, Sir Richard Branson, and Sebastian Coe during the 2012 Olympic year came to the school to speak about some of the ways that business can learn from sport and vice versa. In terms of our events, we hold events that are specific to regions and industry, but also our annual Global Leadership Summit, which is a summit for students and other members of the school community to hear from leaders and get their perspectives on how business should be run and the direction the world is going. So a little bit about the specifics on the Executive MBA portfolio. So as you can see, there's 4 versions of the Executive MBA, and they all differ slightly. But the one consistent thing around the 4 of them is that they are part-time programs for executives. So going across, the Executive MBA London and Dubai are both 20-month programs. In fact, they're identical in every way, except that for the location they're taught in, and a slight difference in the fees as well. But notice that the fees for the Dubai program are in US dollars, so it's roughly the same fees for both London and Dubai. So the London and Dubai classes are very much 2 sides to one class. And what this means is that we bring together around about 140 students across 2 locations, around about 70 to 75 in London, and around about 40 to 50 in Dubai, up to 60 sometimes in Dubai. And whilst they have a lot of their core learning in one of those 2 locations, either London or Dubai, they're brought together in the first week of the program and the last week of the program. Then also a lot throughout the electives as well. The London students have the opportunity of taking electives in Dubai, and the Dubai students take a lot of their electives in London. So there really is a chance to network beyond just the class that the individual is in. The London program is taken in what's called a weekend format, which means that during the first year, the core courses, students will come into the classroom on a Friday and a Saturday, and then spend 2 weeks back in the office, and then back again another Friday and Saturday. So what that means is it's 4 days out of the office per month, but only 2 working days. It also means that you're able to apply what you're learning immediately as you go through the program. The Dubai program has a block format, so what that means is it's the same 4 days per month, but they're done consecutively. So it's a little bit more friendly often to commuters who only have to fly in once per month rather than twice. The EMBA-Global Americas and Europe is a 20-month program that's shared between London Business School and Columbia Business School in New York. The way this is done is again through block core, and the core courses alternate between the two schools. So you'll do 1 week in a month in London, and then the following month you'll be in New York at Columbia Business School doing a block week, and then back to London and so on. The EMBA Global programs have a May start date, unlike the EMBA London and Dubai, which have 2 intakes, one in September and the other in January. And as you can see, the fees are a little bit higher, but this is because you get a dual degree for both London and Columbia Business. Hong Kong Business School in Hong Kong and Columbia Business School in New York. The bulk of the program is delivered in Hong Kong. Around about half of the program is delivered there, with the other half split between London and New York. So a little bit about some of the key things. I've mentioned the block week or weekend format and the duration. But some of the other elements that are important are the international assignments. So international assignments are a real consulting projects that are delivered by the students in an overseas location. At the moment for the Executive MBA, we have 5 locations. They're the Russian Federation, South Africa, Argentina, Dubai, and China. And as I said, these are opportunities for the students to come together to do some work and deliver a project in a region, a geographic region that they're not necessarily familiar with, and also probably an industry that they're not as familiar with. So it's an opportunity to expand their horizons and also to really maintain that network within your class a little bit better. The network tends to be a little bit stronger when the students are sent away to an overseas location. There's also the opportunity to study in global business hubs. So obviously, if you look at the places that London Business School has its MBA, its executive MBA, sorry, it's obviously London, Hong Kong, Dubai, and New York. These really are global business hubs, and we've planned this very much in that way. So if you choose to take the EMBA Global, whether it's Americas, Europe, or Asia, get the opportunity to study in different hubs. But even if you take the London or Dubai program, there's the opportunity, although by no means a guarantee, but there's the opportunity to take electives in either Hong Kong or New York, as well as London and Dubai. But also, one of the key things, as you see down the bottom right, is the idea of being able to apply new concepts immediately. And this is what really differentiates executive programs from full-time programs. When on an executive MBA, whether it's weekend format or block week format, individuals are able to go back to the workplace soon after completing their block week or their weekend and apply what they've learned immediately. They can then come back to class a couple of weeks later or a month later and talk to their classmates and faculty about what they've tried, maybe what worked and what didn't, and then reassess and then try again. And this differs very much from a full-time program where people go back to work after a year or 2 years of being out studying and really trying to apply what they've learned and trying to remember what they've learned. So it's a little bit more dynamic as you go through the program. The concept of the executive MBA differs as well from the full-time MBA in that a full-time program is very much about trying to move people into a direction, giving them the tools to be able to shift their careers. The executive MBA is much more about leadership development. So whereas a full-time program is about general management, the executive MBA is general management and leadership. And this really features throughout the program as you look at 4 key areas. And as you can see here, they move in a fairly systematic method through trying to know yourself first, then knowing your context, for then looking to lead yourself and then leading others. So you have very much a journey of leadership and understanding of leadership as you go through the program. So in terms of knowing yourself, this begins in the opening week of the program when the students are expected to deliver a 360 where they've been assessed by their peers in the workplace. So their managers, and also the people that report into them, as well as their peers. So they take a perspective of what others think about them. They also do what's called the NEO, which is a management personality test to find out really what their strengths are and perhaps what direction they should be taking their career. And this red thread really runs through the entire program as people learn how best to manage their careers and what kind of leaders they should be. It's then about trying to find out a little bit more about the context. And a lot about this is finding out about industry around them, whether it's their own industry that they're working in, but also around other industries outside of the industry that they know and work in very well. And this is obviously done through some of the core courses like managerial economics, but it's also fundamentally done through the external elements. So some of the clubs and society elements, some of the external speakers that come on campus, but also through looking at the EMBA leadership program community. So the other people that you're studying with in the classroom, some of the aspects that they bring to your learning are very important in terms of the context. Once you've nailed the areas down of knowing yourself and the context within which a lot of this is again done through core courses like strategic management, but some of the other elements such as personal brand is important in this. How should people be selling themselves in a business context? How do people really maximize their opportunities in terms of networking, and also some of the other soft skill elements as well, like negotiation and bargaining. And once the students have learned how to lead themselves, it's then a natural step to move into leading others. Leading others is fundamentally an important part of the program because this is a program for leaders. Generally, people on the Executive MBA program will have experience of leading individuals, but this really is about trying to look at the nuances of building top teams and looking at developing some of the people working in your teams into effective employees. So as a result of this, the transformative experience it kind of looks like walking up a staircase as you go through the 8 key milestones. And you can see those key things I put on here, the knowing yourself, your context, leading yourself, and leading others. They're covered in the, as you go through the first stages of the program. You then look into transforming your career. So by the end of term 4, you should be really looking to see how you can apply what you've learned to your career itself. So whether it is shifting into a different industry, as a small number of people want to do in the program, or whether it's about really taking that next step, or whether it's about applying what you've learned to the way that your organization does business. This is really the point that the learning becomes very tangible. At the end of the program, when you get to term 5, it comes into capstone. Capstone is the final week of the program, where you really look at what you've done on the program, but it's by no means the end of the program. It's really the crossing point as you then take it forward. When you've gone forward about 6 months past post-graduation, you should be able to look at what has changed in your career, and then feed back to the career center, who's still engaged with you as you go through the post-EMBA experience. And then also continuing on potentially the years beyond that. In the next 5 years, there's the opportunity of going back into to audit electives to take electives on top of your program in future intakes. So a little bit about how the program is broken down. The first 3 terms, as you can see, is the core courses, and this is where you really look at the key important elements of how you become an effective manager. And you look at things like leadership, statistics, financial accounting, corporate finance, also things about strategy, capital markets, and negotiations. And these are the fundamental areas that underpin strong management and leadership. In terms 4 and 5, you get the opportunity to customize your program. So this is where you look at the elective options. We have a portfolio of around about 70 electives covering all of our subject areas, whether it's accounting, economics, strategy, organizational behavior, marketing. And in choosing these electives, you can either look to specialize in an area you have weaknesses in, or you could specialize in an area you have strengths in, or you could look at very much a generalist approach like you do in the first year. There's also the opportunity to take the independent project, which is an opportunity to give back to your organization by delivering a project on something that needs to be done in the organization, where you get to apply what you've learned and also with the guidance of a faculty member as well. And then there's also the international assignment that I mentioned earlier that takes place in terms 4 and 5. So as you can see, the second year differs very much from the first year. Also, in terms of the fact that your colleagues in first year you'll get to know every couple of weeks or every month. In second year, you'll have entirely different classmates as you go through the electives. We have mixed electives where in an elective classroom you might have not just Executive MBA, London or Dubai students, but also EMBA-Globals, full-time MBA, Master in Finance students, Master in Management students, and Sloan students as well. But then it's not just about the learning. Our career services team also offers something slightly different, obviously, to what a full-time student is able to receive. But the Career Centre is still very much actively involved in the Executive MBA experience. So our careers team, instead of looking for jobs for individuals, which is very much what happens for full-time MBA students, the careers team will look at developing you as a leader. So it's much more about leadership coaching. It's very much a hands-on approach as you go through the program. So as you can see, they'll give you a career management toolkit, and a lot of these are simple things like LinkedIn and branding yourself, things like interview skills workshops and CV building, but also some of the key fundamental areas in terms of building your personality and your leadership understanding and really looking at how you're perceived by other individuals. But it's also about looking at how the wider industry operates and looking at labor market intelligence and employer engagement. So how are the best ways for you able to look at getting opportunities in different companies and different industries. The framework in terms of how the Career Centre operates is very much like the program itself, in which you go through a reflection phase where you explore what you believe your career has been so far and where you'd like to take your career, what's important to you now and what you'd like to be doing in the future, and then start exploring and planning and really putting into action a lot of what you've discussed with the careers team. So as I said before, you'll be looking at developing things that really give you an opportunity to sell yourself a little bit better before you then go into the action and really making those changes in your career that you're looking to do. So then in terms of admissions, some of the key things that we look for on the program are really come down on the screen here. And one of the main ones is at the top there, and that's very much being a contributor. We look for individuals on our Executive MBA programs to be able to deliver in the classroom and not just take something away from it. So as I said before, it's not just a program, or our programs are not just programs where you learn from faculty. It's very much about learning across the classroom from others as well. And this is why we try to put together classrooms that are diverse in terms of nationality and background, but also in terms of the industry as well. And it's important that people who come from these backgrounds are willing to contribute. Team skills are therefore a very important part of it, and therefore communication is going to come into it as well. So this is very much a subjective element that we look into how people interact with others, whether they're able to learn from others. And again, it's very much an obvious thing that if someone is coming to do an Executive MBA, we hope they're looking to learn something. People who come on and think they already have a strong understanding of business might not necessarily be able to contribute and take the advice from others as well. Then obviously there's the international exposure or outlook. Primarily, we prefer people who do have an international background, whether they've lived or worked or studied in different countries. However, it's not a requirement, but what is a requirement is certainly an outlook, an international outlook. And this again goes back to the team skills and contribution element. For those people who are looking to learn from others, it's important to be able to learn from different cultures as well. And in any given study group, there's generally in the 5 or 6 different people, there's 5 or 6 different nationalities. On our Executive MBA classes, we have around about 30 different nationalities represented in the classroom. That's in London. In Dubai, it's around about 25 different nationalities. So it really is an important thing that people are able to learn from not just different industries, but also different national backgrounds as well. Commitment and motivation is very important when it comes to part-time programs. Obviously, there's a lot of challenges in undertaking an Executive MBA program. Individuals have to be able to balance their full-time work, and that is a requirement for the program to be employed in a full-time capacity. But they'll also need to balance that with what will feel like full-time education. The programs are part-time, but there's a strong requirement for people to do additional hours outside the classroom. Generally, we say it's around about 20 additional study hours per week to complete the program. There's also the need to try and balance family and social life on top of this, as well as in some cases commuting to London to do the program as well. So obviously, with all these challenges conflicting with each other, it's important that we have motivated people who want to undertake the program, but also who are committed to London Business School itself, and not necessarily likely to prioritize, for instance, the workplace over their studies if something important comes up at work. So it's important that it's not just that you have your own personal commitment, but that you've discussed this with your line manager, with your employers in general. And there's a contingency plan in the workplace to cover your absence, not just for the times that you'll be in the classroom, but also through the fact that you probably have slightly reduced capacity as well, based on the extra work that you're doing during the non-contact hours. Academic ability is important, less important admittedly on an executive MBA program than it is on full-time programs. This is largely because for an executive MBA program, we like to see much more about people's contribution with their professional experience than their academic background. So we'd much rather see people in senior management positions being able to transfer some of their understanding in terms of that to others, rather than those with massively strong academic backgrounds. However, it is important that people have the ability to complete the program. It is a rigorous program, and as a result of that, we would expect people to have pretty decent undergraduate experience. It's not an absolute requirement to have an undergraduate degree, but if you don't have an undergraduate degree, you'd have to have some strong professional background to offset that. If you did poorly in your academic background, you do have the opportunity to explain why you did poorly in the application form. And as I said, it's much more important that people have had a strong professional career than academic career when it gets to the executive MBA level. So you'd need to explain that in the application form itself. The GMAT is a compulsory element of the program. We look for a GMAT of around 650 on average for our program. A 600 is usually the minimum we expect on the GMAT, and that's a balanced GMAT across both the verbal and quantitative sections. The GMAT can be waived on the London and Dubai classes in exceptional circumstances. We have a very small number of waivers, and typically those who are given waivers are either at the C-suite, so whether CEO, CFO, CTO, CMO, COO, CIO, or whatever. Generally, there's an opportunity for a waiver in those situations, or if there's a very strong quantitative background academically in the candidate's profile. So this could be CFA level 3, or it could be other heavy quant skills background. So as I said, the GMAT is very much a non-competitive element of the application process. It's not something that we're necessarily looking for extremely high scores, but we do need to be able to see that the individual is able to pass the more academic elements of the program. We usually think around about 600 balanced across the verbal and quantitative sections is probably about the right level for that. And self-awareness as well. It comes back to the team skills element. We need people to be able to learn from others. That's the fundamental part of education, and also to be able to value the educational experience itself. People need to be introspective. They need to be able to go through the very challenging first week where they receive feedback from those all around them, and also to look at some hard truths that perhaps the direction they wanted their career to go in is not necessarily the direction that their career can go in. So it's very important to be able to take feedback on board from others, but also to have that introspective capacity too. So in terms of the next steps, there's generally speaking on the executive MBA programs, we look to have very much a consultative approach to how we admit people into the program. And what that means is we like to know people before the application is submitted. This makes it a little bit easier for us to make informed decisions. And the way for you to get to know us is to begin with to get in touch. I'll be showing some emails at the email addresses at the end of the presentation for you to jot down. And this is your first step to get in touch with us, to ask some questions about the program, to do a little bit more research, to find out perhaps about events that are happening in your area, where you might be able to come along and experience a little bit about London Business School firsthand from those who are attending, but also the opportunity to send in your CV. In sending in your CV, you will get a response from us in terms of your fit for the program. Are you the right level for the Executive MBA? Is the Executive MBA able to deliver what you're looking to achieve in your career? So it's a good opportunity to do that. And we're often we're always quite honest with our CV reviews. We'll let you know if you are at the right level and whether it's the right direction for you to go in. Once you've submitted your CV, we've assessed you as being the right fit for our program. We can then put you in touch with some of our current students and alumni. And we generally put people in touch with each other based on similar backgrounds. So it might be a similar industry that you work in. It might be the same nationality. It might be commuting from the same area. So you get an opportunity to find out some of the challenges, some of the takeaways, some of the return on the investment that our current students and alumni have managed to take out of the program. We can also possibly invite you to a class visit. The class visits are probably the best way for you to find out a little bit more about the program, because it gives you a chance to come to our campus, whether it's in London or Dubai, and to sit in on a class. This gives you the opportunity to find out how our faculty teach, what the quality of the education is like, but also gives you a chance to see how the class interacts with each other. Some of the questions that are asked in the lectures, how the questions go across the lecture theatre as well, and some of the types of people on the program as well. So you can find out whether these are the kind of people you'd like to learn with and from, if you choose to do the program in the future. Then, of course, fundamentally, it's about preparing for GMAT. The GMAT is typically the most difficult hurdle for anyone looking at doing the Executive MBA application. This is because it does take a fair bit of preparation. For those of you who haven't yet looked into the GMAT, it's typically pegged at around about the 17 or 18-year-old verbal and quantitative abilities, which sounds like it shouldn't be too much of a challenge. But if you haven't done final school year maths or reading comprehension for a while, you might find it quite challenging. It's difficult to try and remember what you'd learned if it's been 10, 15, 20 years since you were in the classroom. So it's important to prepare, and also in preparing for the GMAT, it's about trying to find out more about how the test is structured. So it's more about looking immediately at what the question is asking and not necessarily trying to find out how the question is written. Once you've prepared for the GMAT, it's about trying to take it, and you can take multiple GMATs. It is important to try and get above that 600 benchmark that we ask for. And if you do take multiple GMATs, it doesn't have any massive negative impact on your application. We don't look at an average score. We don't look at the lower scores. We look at the higher score you're able to achieve on the GMAT. The reason we do this is because the GMAT is able to show us your maximum potential. It shows you your true potential. You might have a bad day, you might be unwell, or you might be a little bit stressed, and therefore get below your potential on the score. But no one is ever able to get higher than their potential on the GMAT score. So if you take it multiple times, you might get a higher score than you've done previously, and it's definitely worth doing if you haven't quite reached the benchmark that we're looking for. And then down the bottom there of the slide, the key piece of advice is apply early. The earlier you apply, the more chance you have of being admitted. We have a range of different deadlines on our Executive MBA programs. Of course, with different start dates for the different portfolio as well, it's important to have a look at when our deadlines are. The earlier you apply, the more likely you are to get in, simply because it's less competitive. The first person who applies to the program is merely competing against the benchmark and whether they're right and good enough to get onto the program. The last 10 people are competing against each other as well for limited spaces. So obviously the earlier you apply, the better it is for you. So as I said before, I'll end the presentation on this slide here. And as I said, if you would like to find out if you are the right fit for the program, if you're eligible, then please feel free to email your CV for the preferred program. So There's the three different types there. There's for the Executive MBA, please feel free to send your CV to emba@london.edu. If you're interested in the EMBA-Global Americas in Europe, which is a joint program held out of both New York and London, then send your CV to emba-global@london.edu. And if you're interested in the EMBA-Global Asia program, then please send your CV to asia@emba-global.edu. So I'll leave those email addresses up on screen now, just for you to jot down. And at this point, I'll take any questions that any of you might have regarding the presentation or the program in general. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to type them in now. So I've got a question here about how someone would request for a GMAT waiver. GMAT waivers are decided by the admissions committee. So what you need to do is you need to send us with your application an email requesting a GMAT waiver and your reasons for that. So there's no formal form as such. It's simply just a matter of submitting an email. Obviously, in the GMAT section, you leave the score blank and just put in any future date for the for when you take the test. And we will assess your eligibility for a GMAT waiver based on your overall application and get back to you soon afterwards. So we might then tell you that we'll happily review your application without the GMAT, or we will ask you to take the GMAT if you haven't been successful in your waiver request. In all cases, we do still reserve the right to ask anyone to take the GMAT at a future date, even if given a waiver. So, for instance, if you're given a waiver at review stage because you look like you're the right fit for the program, but at interview stage there are some doubts about your academic abilities, then we may then ask you to take the GMAT in the future. So it's by no means a permanent waiver, but we might ask you to take it again afterwards. There's a question here about what the average age is. Generally speaking, we don't talk about average ages. It's more about the average years of experience, and it's around about 12. But looking at what our average age numbers are, it's usually around about 36 to 37, maybe 38. We typically don't keep track of ages because of age discrimination laws, but the experience level is around about 12 years on average. There's a question here about scholarships and educational loans for female candidates. So on the Executive MBA for London, there's one scholarship available for women. It's called the 30% Club Scholarship, which is a scholarship for 50% of fees. To be eligible, you must be 100% self-funding and female. That's the only permanent scholarship we have for the London program at this point. We also have other scholarships that are occasionally rotating that come through. We will be having a one-off scholarship for the upcoming intake to celebrate our 50th anniversary, called the 50th Anniversary Scholarship Fund, and that is for 100% of fees. But that is obviously just a one-off for this 50th anniversary year that we're celebrating. There's a question here about taking the analytical writing part of the GMAT test. The answer is you will have to take it because the GMAT will actually cancel your score if you don't take it. So it is important you do make the effort. However, we only look into the analytical writing score if the verbal section is concerning to us. So to be completely honest, the main sections that we focus on for the Executive MBA are the verbal, quantitative, and integrated reasoning sections. But as I said, the GMAC company, the people who run GMAT, will require you to do the analytical writing, otherwise they'll cancel your score. And also, we might use it if there's concerns about your verbal score. We would then look at the score you've got on the analytical writing. So going on to the question previously about the GMAT waiver and how you submit a GMAT waiver. Um, the GMAT waiver request should be submitted with the application. So you click send on the application and then email one of the email addresses you see on the screen there. So in this case, probably ember@london.edu, saying that you'd like to request a waiver. This will then be passed on to the admissions team, and we'll look at that in your file. So there's a question here about the difference between the Executive MBA and the Global Executive MBA programs. Uh, Fundamentally, the curriculum is the same, but the difference is very much in location and network. So for the Executive MBA program, you'll be studying either in London and therefore with a network of people who are generally based in and around Europe. They're from nationalities that are a little bit more diverse than just Europe, but they'll be based in and around Europe, sometimes the east coast of the US. And for those in the Dubai class, they're generally based in and around the Gulf region and South Asia, and often a little bit further afield, but the bulk of the class will be from that region. For the EMBA-Global program, because it's held in multiple locations, there tends to be a little bit more diversity in terms of where people are based. Um, there also tends to be a little bit more of a requirement for company support on the EMBA-Global, given that there's a lot more of an impact on individuals because there's much more traveling. They're the key differences. The curriculum is very much the same, but obviously with the EMBA-Global, you're also tending to do a little bit more in terms of the different styles of education from the two programs. So it's not just about the core courses. For instance, corporate finance is taught very differently at London Business School compared to how corporate finance is taught at Columbia Business School. So there are differences in that way. And ultimately on the EMBA-Global program as well, for the EMBA-Global American Europe, you get two MBA certificates, one from London Business School and one from Columbia Business School as well. There's a question here about the right approach to get in touch with alumni. Well, essentially, if you want to be put in touch with alumni, you need to get in touch with us via one of the email addresses here and submit your CV. And once we've assessed your CV and assessed that you are the kind of person we'd like to welcome into the school community potentially, we will then connect you to alumni based on who you want to be introduced to, whether it's on a industry basis or a nationality basis or a gender basis or a commuting basis or whatever. But yes, if you send your CV over to us and say that you'd like to be put in touch with with an alumnus or a current student, then we'll be able to set that up for you. There's a question here asking about whether this presentation will be made available after the event. Yes, it will. I don't know the answer to that myself. I'm just doing the presentation, but our events team has recorded the presentation, so they will be able to share it. Please feel free to send an email to them. I believe there'll be a follow-up email coming as well to all people who've registered. So that might have the link to the presentation recording. Or you'll be able to reply to that email and ask for a link to the recording. But yes, the presentation has been recorded, so it will be available after the event is finished. So there's a question here asking if there's 75 people in the class and how they interact with each other. That is correct. On the London side, there are 75 people in the classroom. In Dubai, there are anywhere between 45 and 60 people in the classroom. For the American Europe program, it's typically about 70, and for Asia, it's 40 to 50. In terms of the London class, it's 75 people. How do they interact with each other? You'd be surprised. There's everyone in the program tends to get to know each other quite well. They'll know some pretty important details. And this is because we force people to interact with each other as much as possible over those 20 months. The first 10 months is taken exclusively with those 75 people. And also remember that you're broken down into study groups as well. So in those study groups of 5 or 6, you deliver projects, you deliver work, and it really is a chance to find out about strengths and weaknesses of people as you go through it. So it is very much a leadership journey. There's a question here about the professional backgrounds of individuals and whether there's any trends and in how it's changing and therefore the class profile. Broadly speaking, there's almost two eras that since I've been involved at London Business School, and there's the pre global financial crisis and the post global financial crisis classrooms. The crisis tended to hit us and other business schools a couple of years after the crisis itself. So it was more around 2009, 2010 that it hit us, and that's largely because of uh, the fact that with education, it's a bit of a lagging indicator. People have usually made their plans to do an MBA a couple of years in advance. So when 2007, 2008 rolled around, people had already committed to the program. So therefore, we didn't really see a change in the class profiles until a couple of years after that. But we certainly saw whilst we still have a large percentage of people coming from a financial services or a consulting background, we started to see those numbers shrinking a little bit in terms of both applications and also people in the class. And much more of a push towards entrepreneurs. We saw a growing number of entrepreneurs coming on board, but also some of the less traditional backgrounds as well. We've seen a big rise in healthcare recently, and a lot of this is also because the NHS is pushing for their specialists, their registrars and GPs to be much more effective managers. So we're getting a lot of sponsored candidates from healthcare, and also in other areas as well that we wouldn't traditionally have. So legal is starting to pick up a little bit too. So there is a shift. I think a lot of other industries are seeing the value in MBAs and not necessarily just the financial services and consulting and engineering people that we used to see a lot more of. So there's a question here about the deadline for the intake in January 2016. Our final deadline for that is there's a question here about the loan scheme and whether we recommend the loan scheme as advised by London Business School, or whether you should take a loan in your country of residence. I wouldn't be best placed to answer that question, but if you get in touch with the email address above, they'll probably be able to get in touch with our financial aid officer who would know a little bit more about that. But the loan scheme mentioned is the Prodigy loan. It is certainly a strong loan. It's useful, but again, there's obviously probably a range of different loan opportunities available in whatever country you're from. So it's probably best to get in touch with the email address above. There's a question here about references and how important references are in the selection criteria. They are important, and it's also more important that you select who your reference is. A lot of people seem to think that if you choose a reference from, for instance, your CEO or something like that, then that will go down well. It will if the CEO knows you well, but if that person doesn't interact with you regularly, they might not be able to give a balanced and detailed appraisal of your skills and your abilities. So we certainly look for people who are able to give more information rather than less. Also, importantly, on the Executive MBA, one of your referees should be your current line manager. This is just for us to find out and to make sure that you've cleared this with your employer, and that we won't be surprised all of a sudden with you not being able to take the classes due to work deadlines. Okay, there's a question here about if someone looking to apply within 12 to 18 months, and what I'd recommend that they would do between then and now. It's important to do your research. So as I said, there's the steps I outlined before. It's very much about getting in touch with us and trying to interact with our recruitment team and also the admissions team as well. Coming along to events, whether it's here in London or in your local city when we do our travels around, is important. Gives you a chance to meet current students and alumni who come along to the events, and also the admissions teams. Um, but also sending in your CV, finding out if you're the right fit for the program, coming along to a class visit. There's a whole range of different things you can do, but it's very important that we get to know you over this period, so that when your application does finally get submitted, we have an idea of who you are and we can make a more informed decision. Right. On that note, I'll end. I do apologise. I've been told that at some stage the microphone dropped out as I was talking. So hopefully you didn't miss out on too much information when the microphone failed. But if you didn't quite get the information you were looking for, then as I said, please feel free to get in touch with one of the email addresses above,